I'm Kayanne, and I do a lot of art making and journaling and all manner of creative things. And I recently acquired the set of 60 Zig Clean Color Real Brush Pens, and I just wanted to try them out with you along and see what I think of them. I'm going to try them out in a couple different journals. This one has pretty plain paper, sort of like paper that you would use in your printer. Maybe a little smoother, but it's takes marker very well, although it does kind of ghost and bleed through a little bit at times. I'm turning to this page that I started, just kind of a stream of consciousness that I did one time when I was trying out some other new pens that were the, I'm not even sure the brand of these. Oh, they're Uniball pens. Uniball 1.5 pens, and they're kind of really smooth writing ballpoint pen, and I got a set of a bunch of different colors, so I was trying them out, just doing this little, rather than swatching, I kind of did this just stream of consciousness, just whatever popped into my mind is what I drew. It's kind of a fun page to do. I think I want to do more of those. But in this page, I tried out these ballpoint pens. So I think I'll go ahead. It doesn't look finished to me, so I think I'll go ahead and continue with that in the theme of swatching out and trying out pens. The first thing I need to do is find out how water soluble these ballpoint pens are that are already on there. As soon as you can see, they bleed out slightly, but really not very much. So that's good to know. That's kind of fun. So whatever I do with my new watercolor markers, my Zig Clean Color pen, brush pens, I'll know that it's them washing out instead of the ink that's already underneath. The first color I pull out is this orange, and so I'm just going to kind of find a place for it to go. The brush on these is fairly similar to a paintbrush versus a marker. I'm kind of have had a lot of experience with Tombow markers and use those as kind of watercolor brushes, so in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, how are these different? How do these compare to those? So some things I'm noticing right away is that brush tip is less rigid. It's more bendable and floppy. So you might feel like you have less control than with the Tombow. And I do think, though, that it washes out a little easier than the Tombow ink. And as you can see, I'm doing some fairly fine work with that without a problem. So I think as far as that goes, these will be fine. The marks seem a little more dry, more brush-like than the Tombow. The Tombow seems a little more inky. So if I was just using these as a, purely as a marker, I think I might like the Tombow better. Also, the Tombow comes with that bullet tip on the other end, which these do not have. However, for purely a watercolor brush, I really am liking already the way that these kind of wash out and blend together. The color selection seems pretty good. There's already, though, even in a set of 60, it's like not all the blues that I would like to have are in there, but I think that's just, I would, I want all the colors, and it would take an enormous set to probably keep me happy on that front. But there is a good selection, and they can be blended together, so that gives you a lot more options as well. I'm doing, again, some pretty fine work here, going back into some lettering that I had done. So I think if I was just lettering, I think I would prefer the Tombow perhaps, but these I think will work fine for the type of things that I usually do. They are pairing quite well with those Uni ONE pens, and not, I'm going right over my pen lines with these clean color, and they are not making the pen line bleed. So here you can see I'm using the Tombow and how bold and inky these colors are. The Zig Clean color I feel like are a little softer, even in the darker colors. But so again, I think that they just both serve slightly different purposes. I like them both quite well, and I'm not ready to give up my Tombow, but I'm also really happy to fully embrace these new Zig Clean Color watercolor effect brushes. Here I am layering, one color on top of another, and I really like the blending that you can achieve with that. Even when it's had a little bit of time to dry, it seems like it will reactivate some as you go over it with a second color, which is perfect. That gives it, it works more like actual watercolor that way. So I really like that feature in it. You do have to be careful that you're not going over a color that you don't want to blend in, so there is some caution there. But just knowing how your tools work is the important thing. There's all kinds of different, both sides of the coin have their advantages. You just have to know what you're dealing with as you're working, or as you're choosing which one to use. So that's kind of where I'm at here, is just playing with it and seeing what the limitations are, what the advantages are, and how and when I am going to want to use these pens. So I'm just going to speed things up from here and put on some music as I finish up this page. And then later I'm going to be showing trying these out in an actual little watercolor journal. So stay tuned for that, because there's more experimenting coming up. Pulled out my little watercolor sketchbook that I've been working on faces in, and I am going to try out, this is quite different paper, it's much more absorbent than the last journal that I was using. So I'm going to try out how it works in here. First thing I'm doing is trying it on top of existing watercolor. I want to be able to use these in conjunction with watercolor, and I need to see, not every pen works well on top of watercolor, so I'm just kind of testing out to see how it works on top of a piece that I've already watercolored. So it looks like it's really working very well. Of course, when I try the water brush on here, that will where the truth will really be told, and it does blend in well with the existing watercolor. I'm very happy with how that's working. So I'm going to play around a little bit on this piece that's already watercolor. This will be a great way to just add some little final touches onto a watercolor piece. So I am excited about that use for these pens. So I felt like this little face wasn't quite finished, so I'm going to use these pens and go back in and add those finishing touches to this illustration. Moving on to another existing illustration here, and I'm just using this pen to add some more definition and shading and things like that, and those kind of fine details that I find a little hard to do with a paintbrush actually come quite easy with this, and I can see this will be very useful where I have in the past kind of jumped to using like a Pigma pen, micron pen to add some lines and definition. I think it will be much better to use one of these Zig Clean Color pens. So I'm looking forward to that. So just taking my illustrations another notch further. Now I'm turning to a drawing that I had done that I had not painted in yet. So I'm going to see how they work to just do the entire painting for a drawing instead of just adding to existing watercolor. So I'm going to try out. I'm especially interested in obviously how their flesh tones work, and there seems to be a pretty good variety of them to achieve a pretty wide range of skin colors, so I'm happy about that. And the watercolor paper takes these very nicely, so I'm also pleased with that. They go down pretty smooth and inky, so it's like even before putting water over it, it's not terribly streaky. So that's one thing I was concerned about, whether it would just absorb the ink, you know, in streaks instead of letting it blend together. But it seemed like it actually worked rather well, and then of course as I add water it smooths it out even further. Even though regular watercolors are fairly portable, I can see these being really great for travel when you don't want to have, you know, messy paints around, like I'm riding in a car or something like that. I can see that these would be really excellent to use. So as I finish up, I just want to say I am very, very pleased with these. I kind of went on a limb getting the big set, but I am so happy I did, and I really love them and can see that I'm going to be using these a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.